Okay, now I started doing this video a minute ago and I lost it because I guess I didn't have enough room on my computer. So I'm going to try to recreate and talk about what I did. Okay, I was watching a football game between Fort Valley and Clark, which was of special interest to me because they are schools that are HBCUs that were the same size in the same quote unquote division as Fisk was when I first got to Fisk. When I first got to Fisk had a hell of a football team and a long tradition of football team, going back to some of the very first presidents of Fisk. They used to be called the Sons of Milo or Milo, however you pronounce it. And my first year at Fisk, the football team was 10-0 and was headed towards the playoffs if they won one more game. They played Fort Valley, which also team I was talking about tonight, which also had a hell of a team. And Fort Valley ended up winning that game, like 14-7. It was real close. It was like 2 scores to 1 score, maybe 7-6 or something like that. So we didn't go to the playoffs, but Fisk had people in the NFL. Johnny Jones, the quarterback from the year before I got there, when they were 11-0 in the SIAC, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So that's the conference that Fisk was in. They were in there with Knoxville College, Morehouse, Clark, Morris Brown, Lemoyne-on, I believe, Miles in Alabama, Stillman, So it was a great conference of comparable schools. But when integration came around, let me go back to Johnny Jones was at the Jets, the quarterback. Robert James was playing with Buffalo Bills. And the year I was there, we played Morehouse. Down in Morehouse, we did a road trip, one of my first road trips. I think my first road trip as a college student. We all piled in my boy, Art Gilmore. He was from Chicago. He's deceased now. God rest his soul. KSI. That was my guy. He was right across the hall from me in Burris Hall. And we all piled in his car, guys and girls, about 22 of us in a Dodge Challenger. And we drove down to Atlanta. And we played Morehouse. And Morehouse came out to a 22-0 lead. And then Fisk scored 55 straight unanswered points. We had a guy named Andrew Bolton, who ended up going, I think, first to the Seahawks and then to Detroit, or vice versa. Detroit Lions or Seattle Seahawks in the NFL. He rushed for 250 yards that day. We kicked Morehouse's ass. So we were in the football business, and I don't think it was as expensive as it has gotten now. So when integration came, the Southern schools, the SEC schools, started allowing black players. Before the 70s, they didn't let black players play. They didn't let Negroes, niggas come to the school, right? As you might remember, James Meredith, he integrated University of Mississippi. Charlene Hunter Galton, somebody else, they integrated University of Georgia. I don't forget who integrated Alabama. But the governor of Alabama stood at the door and said, we're not going to let no Negroes come in. He didn't use the word Negroes either. So why am I saying this? Well, the big white schools started putting black schools out of the football business. And remember, they got huge because not only they have a lot of students, but they were granted that land. They are most of them are land grant institutions. The government gave them that land to educate the people. And when they had Jim Crow and segregation, they often began other schools separate from the University of Alabama, they would have Alabama State University or Alabama Normal or Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical for the Negroes to go to. They were also land grant institutions, but they were separate because you couldn't have Negroes and white people together. So a lot of the larger HBCUs are state schools and land grants. The smaller ones like Fisk and Morehouse, I say smaller in student body uh, population. They were mostly private schools. Some started by um, churches, like I think the AME Church started Morris Brown. Some started by what's called missionary good white folks like Fisk. Fisk was started by the American Missionary Association, along with the Freedmen's Bureau, which was a government bureau charged with transitioning the former enslaved into freemen, right? And so Oliver Howard was the national uh, chair of the Freedmen's Bureau, and he gave a gift of $20,000 to start a Negro college in Washington, D.C., and they named it after him, Howard University. The same thing happened in Nashville, where the Union Army had a strong presence ever since the beginning of the Civil War. In 1861, I think, the Union Army took over Nashville. So Clinton Fisk was the head of the Freedmen's Bureau in Nashville, General Clinton Fisk, and he gave a $20,000 gift to the American Missionary Association to start a school in Nashville. So they named it after him, Fisk University. And that's where I went to school. I was a music major, so I ended up getting into the Fisk Jubilee Singers. It's a historic group, 150-year-old choral ensemble. It was really credited with bringing black music to the forefront. And black music at the time was either field hollers or Negro spirituals. And most musical traditions have two veins. They have spiritual, sacred, and they got worldly, the secular, sacred and secular. Same thing with black music. We had the spirituals, which evolved into our church music, gospel, and whatever. And you got the field hollers, which is about life on earth, which evolved into the blues. So it's two sides of the same coin. The Fisk Jubilee Singers came about because the school's financial troubles made it necessary for people to take things in their own hands, take the action in their own hands. One such person was George Leonard White, who was the treasurer of the school, who also served as the de facto music head of the music. So he had assembled a chorus that had been singing all kinds of stuff, singing Handel, cantata of Handel, the cantata of Esther. They were known for this. They were a great choir. Well, he said, I'll take my kids on the road and try to raise some money for the school in spite of the objections of of the administration that was said, we're asking for money in the same places. So they traveled the route of the Underground Railroad, stopped in Cincinnati and Ohio and all that crap stuff, and did concerts. Eventually, at first they didn't get success, but eventually they found success in raising money by singing black music and Negro spirituals. So why am I bringing this up? University of Alabama, University of Georgia, LSU, those schools that didn't allow blacks in the 70s, they started allowing blacks to come and play out of necessity because they wanted to win, and the black players were tremendous athletes. They were obscure because they were all playing at black colleges. But now they started slowly integrating running backs, linebackers, defensive people, mainly for the style of play and the tenaciousness and the speed. So that has evolved into these divisions. When they integrated, they came with Division I, which was really a size designation for all I know. So University of Alabama has 30,000 students. 10% of them are black, so that's 3,000. University of Alabama has 100 people on the football team. 70 of them are black. The football team is 70% black, but the student body is 10% black, right? So that means that the money that football makes, which is huge, they make millions, if not billions of dollars. The money that the football team makes that goes back into the university helps educate young whites in Alabama mostly that come out with a conservative mindset and viewpoint, which is counterproductive to black people achieving what we've always strived for in America, which is equal protection under the law, full citizenship. We never really achieved full citizenship. You know, we were slaves, then we were free, but we were subject to Jim Crow, and then we were the subject of government support of oppressive and exploitative practices like redlining and price gouging and stuff. So not until 1964 did we have a Civil Rights Act and a Voters' Rights Act that protected us, especially in the South, of our rights. Well, right now in the South, we make all these state universities that are land-grant institutions, we make them rich with our young black, with the strength and sinew of our young black athletes, male and female. And they get rich, and then they produce people that oppress us. Well, Fisk doesn't have 30,000 people. We've got about 10,000 alums worldwide. So how do we raise the millions of dollars that it takes to run a university? Well, like most schools, especially private schools, we have to have philanthropic benefactors. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, and you can see that it's quite obvious by looking at the schools in Nashville, Tennessee. The first school that really got the big money to grow like a university should was Vanderbilt, which is 7 years younger than Fisk. But the next one, the one that's growing right now, is the one that gives me the most cause to pause. And that's Belmont University, which was Belmont College when I was in school in 1975 to 80. And they had a little studio. And we used to go over there to record in the studio. Now, Fisk missed the mark by not having a studio and being like, trying to be like a conservatory. But that's just one part of the story. Belmont has had benefactors like Jack Massey and now Mike Herb that have poured millions of dollars into it to make it grow into a university. And it's billed as Nashville's music university. But the first entity that put Nashville on the map in music was this choir from Fisk of Emancipated Slaves, the Fisk Jubilee Singers. They became worldwide sensations. And when George White took them out to raise money, they did just that. And they raised so much money. Not only did they save Fisk and buy the land that Fisk is presently on now and build buildings that are still standing at Fisk, but they saved the American Missionary Association, the AMA, which is the entity that, along with the Freedmen's Bureau, just established schools after school, high schools, normals, colleges. They established Fisk. Not only did Fisk save Fisk, not only did Jubilee Singers save Fisk and the AMA, but they also, the money they made, helped the AMA start Tougaloo, Talladega, Dillard, and even help financial situation at Howard and Hampton. So the Jubilee Singers made a tremendous amount of money, and they made a tremendous impact on education for blacks at HBCUs, for the view of black people, instead of that stereotypical right. No, they were real black people, dignified people who are now free to do what they wanted to do. Well, 150 years later, we still have the same problems that Fisk had back then. We need more money. Now, this school was built on music, but for the last 50 or 60 years or so, we haven't even had a music building. The music department at Fisk, ever since I got there, was housed in a little old house that's still on the campus called the Music Annex. And for years I thought, that's strange. What is it next to? Well, there was a music building on the site of where it sits now, the John Hope and Aurelia Franklin Library. So the administration decided to tear down the music building to build a new library with the promise, not necessarily promise, but the vision, the intent to build another music building. But that has never happened because Fisk has been struggling to pay bills. Some students in the 80s remember when they was out on street corners begging for money with cans, oh my God, right? But, we did whatever we had to do to stay open. But administrations have constantly been in a struggle to keep doors open, keep the university accredited. So arts education has gone to the rear burner. So it's taking students, former students, alums, who have a specific interest in building the program back, building the music program back to what it should be. What it was for me, I had visions of becoming a concert pianist. I started studying piano at the age of 4. By the time I was leaving high school, I had been studying with a teacher at the Chicago Conservatory, and I was very prepared musically to study. I got into Northwestern. I didn't apply to Juilliard. I applied to Howard. I got into Howard, and I applied to Fisk on the recommendation of a fellow classmate from high school that was headed to Fisk and whose mother had come to Fisk. And Fisk let me in, even though my grade point average was an abysmal 1.74 in high school. And that was mostly because I didn't do hardly any work in high school. What I did in high school, during my high school years, was practice piano, like 8 hours a day. I was really striving to be a concert pianist. I didn't even know that the best 2 teachers I could possibly have had for me in America, Matthew and Ann Gamble Kennedy, were the piano faculty at Fisk. I wonder how lucky I was. God just really blessed me to come to Fisk, not even knowing, just thinking I'd go anywhere and study music. It should have an excellent faculty, and that's not true. But it was true for me because the Kennedys were there. I was like another son like a son to them. They got a daughter. I was like a son to them, like Brian Coleman was, or who else? Carol Stone, the great Carol Stone. Portia, just tons of piano majors came through and got excellent instruction and group. But by the time, well, that's the other story. So I was a member of the Jubilee Singers, and we went out and toured and stuff, and the music department was thriving. But now the music department is struggling. It's not even really a department. It's part of the Department of Humanities and Fine Arts. So I find these things really disturbing that Fisk doesn't really have a music department. It's just the music department and speech and drama and art, they're all under the umbrella of fine arts, when each of them should have their own school in a university. So we've been dedicated, the Fisk Jubilee Singer alumni, we have organized and we're dedicated to grow the music department at Fisk, to always be advocates for things musical at Fisk. That's why we exist. And right now we've got one main program, but we have a lot of things that we desire in our vision board. Our main program now is called the Jubilee Heritage Awards, which now has merged with the Nashville Fisk University Alumni's Old Scholarship Gala to make a new entity, the Gold and Blue Jubilee Bash. Last year we had our first one. We give our Heritage Award away in the bash. So the bash is a party. Last year was a dinner. It's not going to be a dinner this year. But last year was a party and with musical tributes to Frankie Beverly and Muddy Waters, and also recognition of a musical excellence in music business. And that the award we named after a guy, Eddie Thomas, who received the Jubilee Heritage Award a few years back and was a major player in the music business. So we gave the first Eddie Thomas special Jubilee Heritage Award for music business to a man named Jeffrey Halston, who's the chief counsel and executive vice president of Universal Music Group, which is, like I found out in my research, probably the largest record company in the world. So why am I doing all this? Well, upcoming in November the 6th, our Jubilee Heritage Award will be presented this year to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And we have a few things we try to accomplish with this award. One, we want to recognize our own. You know, we don't need the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Grammys to tell us who's great in music. Fisk University is the epicenter of black commercial music. The Jubilee Singers were the first blacks to turn the music of black America into dollars. And with those dollars, they did something very noble. They built a great university, right? So out of that tradition of scholarship and excellence in music, the alumni of the Fisk Jubilee Singers are determined to assist the university in every way we can to help build the department back up. And we're hoping that other disciplines use this model, you know, to help the university grow other things that, you know, the Fisk University doctors, physicians alumni, the lawyer alumni, you know, the preacher alumni, all that kind of stuff to help raise money for the school and specifically for their areas of discipline, and also to assist the students that we get and give them a bridge to a professional life. You know, can you imagine all the doctors that Fisk makes? The kid wants to be a doctor, and they got scores of physicians, Fisk-made physicians that they can go and get advice from. Some of them may even have practices that they want to either sell or give to you. You already got a practice that's there. So there's an infinite amount, I won't say infinite, but there's certainly numerous opportunities for things such as this. One thing that we want to do as Jubilee Singer alumni is to help bridge our talented Jubilee Singers or our talented music majors into the professional world. We got people who are singing as well or even better than most of the people you hear out here. I'm not going to drop names. I was tempted to, but I'm not going to. But some of these people out here making money in record, they can't sing. You know, but Jeremy Kelsey can sing. Eric Lynn can sing. Kawana Williams, Dr. Kawana Williams, he can sing. These are some of the more recent graduates I've been about. Moira Conchella, she can sing. You know, Jasmine Ford Keo, Joe Foki, she can sing. You know, all right. And from my era, Donna McElroy can sing. She was a professor at Berkeley. Kim Fleming can sing. I mean, Carol Starr. You know, we've got tons and tons of talent that comes out of Fisk. Why don't we have big stars? Well, we need to help support our talented young people when they get into this industry. They certainly are talented enough. So that's another initiative of the Jubilee Singer alumni. And so I'm bringing this to you guys so that you'll think about supporting the events that we have and giving more back to the university, because this is ours. We're the owners. Most of the time when we go to a place, an institution, we've been locked out and we're knocking on the door, we kick the door in and we get the same thing that everybody else has. But it's not ours. So we just leave there and we don't really feel ownership to that place. You know, if you go to University of Alabama, yeah, you went there. You got your degree, you know, it speaks a lot because it's a university that does have a certain amount of prestige. You know, you go to Harvard, of course. You know, I went to Harvard. I went to Yale. Went to Princeton. You're a black person, you went to Princeton. but you're not you're not an owner of Princeton. When you go to Fisk, Fisk is I feel Fisk is in my heart. Fisk is mine. And so the stewardship is, I need to be a good steward to Fisk. And its survival and thrival, I just made up a word, but Fisk thrives when I support it, So I'm not a rich person. So what can I do to support it? Well, I have been considered talented. No, stop that. I'm talented. I can play piano. I can play my ass off. And pretty good, damn good composer. And I've made good connections in my professional career. Very few people will say, Gio, I don't mess with what I'm playing. Everybody's going to say, man, that guy's really good. So I'm using my connections to try to link up with the black music industry so that they can see that this is a worthy cause to build up this place that really gave all of us our start. The Fisk Jubilee Singers are the prototype of how to have a successful financial and artistic career in music. They were America's first real global superstars. And they took the first real American music and made it into an art form. It's a remarkable story what they did, and not a story without challenges, because they persevered through uncomfortable conditions, through sickness, through strife, through usury. It's an amazing story when you really get into it. And so everybody that came after them really owes a debt to the Jubilee Singers. And so you can repay that debt by supporting Fisk, by supporting the Jubilee Singers, by supporting our efforts. Eventually we want to build a music building, on the campus of Fisk University or nearby, maybe on Jefferson Street, someplace where we can build a state-of-the-art facility, something that's worthy of our historical significance and the legacy of the Jubilee Singers and Fisk music in particular. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to raise money for scholarships, to get some of the finest students. A lot of our really great singing African American students, black students, they end up at Juilliard because that's the place where they're going to grow. They end up at Berkeley, that's the place where they're going to grow. But we should be the place where black music has its home. This music that has such impact worldwide. Think about what black music is. Hip hop is in Korea. That's so far removed from New York. It's mind-boggling. As different as the American Constitution and the Russian government are, they got hip hoppers in Russia. They got kids in Russia rapping in Russian to beats, making beats. So why is it that Berkeley is America's jazz institution? North Texas, University of North Texas. Why is it that these schools are the real places where this music is taught? It should be at Fisk. It should be at Morehouse. You want to study jazz, you should go to Morehouse. You should come to Fisk. You want to study black church music, you should come to Fisk. The black worship experience, the traditions of our worship, they should be centered. The study of them should be centered at Fisk. The study of black music. At one time, the Center for Black Music Research was at Fisk. So all of these things, let's get along. But all of these things are reasons why we're doing what we do. We don't have football. A lot of schools depend on football for major money. We don't have football. And if we get football back, we're not going to have a 100,000 seat stadium. But we do have music. And we have a historical claim to the birthplace, the epicenter, ground zero of music in America. So help us raise the money, to build a place to make sure that we Fisk and other HBCUs have a place where our young people can come to study, grow, find themselves, and contribute to this great tradition of art that is the Black American music, historical music pathway. Without the Jubilee Singers, there is no Ragtime, Scott Joplin. Without Jubilee Singers, there is no Duke Ellington. Without the Jubilee Singers, there is no Nat King Cole. There is no Louis Armstrong. There is no Wings Over Jordan. There is not even those black choirs that came out of the colleges after Jubilee Singers, like the Tuskegee Golden Voices and Morgan State's Fine Chorus, the Hampton Singers, who else? Knoxville College Choir. Without the Jubilee Singers, there's no Beyonce. Without the Jubilee Singers, there's no Temptations, no Motown, no Stax, no Curtown records, no Solar records. I'm making my point. Without the Jubilee Singers, there's no Teddy Riley. There's no Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. There's no Babyface. There's no Earth, Wind, and Fire. There's no Sun Ra. There's no Miles Davis. I said Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, all that kind of stuff. That's music that evolved out of the Negro spiritual. Yeah. Musicology-wise, it's traced directly to the Negro spiritual. Places like Congo Square, Fisk that brought it out first commercially. So, I know it got long. I'm at like 32 minutes, but it's important. It's important. So I guess I'll put this on YouTube somewhere so that you can see it. Maybe I'll try to edit it down. But these are the reasons that we're so dedicated and passionate, right? And so all you other Jubilee Singer alumni out there, get on board. Get on board with us. Help us row this boat. We're getting tired. We've been rowing and rowing and rowing. We need you to come in and roll up your sleeves. It ain't about me. It's about Ella Shepard and Jenny Jackson and Maggie Porter and George Leonard White. You got to put someone on that campus. Do you realize there's nothing on that campus with his name on it? If he doesn't do what he did and take them kids and start the choir in the first place, right at the beginning of Fisk's existence, and have them in shape to be wonderful, fine singers when they go out on the road and finally become famous. If he doesn't do that, God doesn't put that in his mind, there's no Fisk, because they were going to close Fisk. They were going to close Fisk and go to Memphis to try to build up Lemoyne. Man, so many of y'all Fiskites don't know this story. Y'all need to get this story so you understand. It's not just crab night that makes us love each other. It's the foresight and the sacrifice of our ancestors. I said Jenny Jackson. Did I say 14-year-old Minnie Tate? Thomas Rutling. What was his partner name? Green Evans, Benjamin Holmes. I mean, people that literally gave their lives to build Jubilee Hall and Livingston Hall, not Livingston, Livingston Hall, in that chapel. Um, so I hope you got something out of this talk. In review, these big white schools are using our young people to make the money to educate people that oppress us. But the HBCUs have consistently produced the people who have been leaders for us. So we have to sustain these colleges, especially in the face of the attacks that we're getting now. Fisk and Morehouse and Howard and Hampton and Morgan and Tennessee State and Meharry and Spelman and Clark, and bring back Morris Brown and bring back Knoxville College and LeMoyne-Owen and Miles and Stillman and Alabama A&M and Alabama State and Jackson State, and Itta Bena, Mississippi Valley State and South Carolina State and Claflin and North Carolina. What we got? All them schools in North Carolina, A&T, Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville, Livingstone. I can go on and on. 107 schools that have produced, that have lifted black people up. Come on, black people. These are ours. This is ours. This is where we get better and better. This is where we learn how to fight this bullshit that's going on. All right. 250 years of America, and we're still fighting for our citizenship. It's a never-ending fight. So prepare yourself. And these HBCUs are one of the ways that we prepare ourselves to uplift our community. Just think. Your great-great-great-grandmother might have been strapped and chained together with my great-great-great-great-grandmother on a slave ship called Jesus that came here from the west coast of Africa and parked itself in Charleston Harbor, where they were brought off that ship after a horrendous journey across the ocean and sold as cattle. And now, 400 years after that first slave ship came to Jamestown, here we are in our houses with running water and my Hyundai's Tucson outside. But there's so much more that we should have. Black America, all right, we're a nation within a nation. All right, enough of this. That's almost 40 minutes. I hope this made some kind of impact. All right. You'll hear more about our event coming up soon. All right. I'm old. I do it on Facebook, so you'll see it on Facebook. I say,